Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the English Speaking School.
Hello, lovely listeners. Emma, I have a quick challenge for our friends today. Have you ever felt your English sounds a little bit stiff? Not quite natural?
Oh, that's a great question, John. I think we've all felt that way sometimes. We want to speak English smoothly, like a native speaker.
Exactly. And that's what we're talking about today. How to make your English sound more natural and fluent. Welcome to the English Speaking School podcast.
In this episode, we're sharing some fantastic tips. We'll look at special words called discourse markers. These are small words like, well, you know, actually. They help your sentences connect smoothly.
Yes, and we'll also talk about phrasal verbs connected to communication. For example, speak up or point out. They make your English sound more authentic.
Plus, we'll teach you a simple way to check your own speaking. It's called self-evaluation. It helps you see your progress and improve faster.
So, get ready to make your English sound more confident and natural. Let's jump in.
Before we dive deeper, just a quick note for our listeners. If you're serious about taking on this challenge to sound more natural and really want to level up your English speaking, make sure you hit that subscribe button.
That's right. When you subscribe, you won't miss out on any of our tips. For instance, next time we might point out common mistakes with linking words. So definitely subscribe and follow us wherever you get your podcasts.
Okay, let's jump into our first practical tool to make your English flow better. We're going to talk more about those discourse markers we mentioned earlier.
Right. Think of discourse markers as little signposts in your conversation. They don't add much meaning on their own, but they help guide the listener and show how your ideas connect. They make you sound more thoughtful and less like a robot.
Exactly. For example, instead of just saying, I like coffee, I like tea, you could say, well, I like coffee, but actually I prefer tea. Well and actually make it sound smoother and show your thought process. Another useful one is you know. You can use it when you're explaining something you think the other person probably understands. Like, it was a really busy day, you know, one of those days where everything goes wrong.
That's a great example, Emma. And so is another powerful one. We often use it to start a new point or summarize. For instance, so discourse markers really help your sentences link up naturally. Start by listening for these words in conversations. Then try adding just one or two to your own sentences this week. Okay, let's take a common situation. Imagine someone asks you, "What did you do last weekend?" A very simple answer could be, "I stayed home. I watched TV." It's correct, but a bit robotic.
Right. It's direct but lacks natural flow. Now, let's add some discourse markers to make it sound like a real person talking. You could say, well, I stayed home. Actually, I mostly watched TV. You know, I just needed to relax after a busy week. Do you hear the difference?
Absolutely. Well starts your thought. Actually clarifies what you did, and you know explains your feeling. It instantly sounds more conversational and less like a list. The information is the same, but the delivery is much smoother.
Exactly. Try to think of a simple answer you'd give to a common question. Then try adding, well, actually, or you know, where you naturally pause or connect ideas. It takes practice, but it's a huge step towards fluency. Okay, so our first tool, discourse markers, really helps with flow. Now, let's move on to our second tool for sounding more natural, phrasal verbs related to communication.
Phrasal verbs. These are super common in everyday English. They're a verb plus a preposition or adverb, like speak up or point out.
Using them makes your English sound much more authentic and less formal. It's a key step to sounding like a native speaker.
Exactly. Let's start with speak up. It means to talk louder or express your opinion more clearly. So if you're in a meeting and you can't hear someone, you might say, "Could you please speak up? I can't quite hear you."
That's a perfect example. Another really useful one is point out. This means to draw attention to something or mention it. For instance, my friend pointed out a mistake in my presentation. Instead of just saying mentioned or showed, point out as a natural, active feel. Try to listen out for these phrasal verbs when you're watching English TV shows this week. So, Emma, how did your presentation practice go for tomorrow's meeting?
Well, John, it was okay. I ran through it a few times. Actually, I still feel a bit nervous about the Q&A part, you know?
I understand. It's tough when people start asking questions. Did anyone point out any areas for improvement?
My colleague did. He told me to speak up a bit more, especially when I get excited. He said I sometimes talk over others without realizing.
That's good feedback. It's always helpful to have someone point out those things.
Did you catch those useful words and phrases?
We use discourse markers like well, actually, and you know, and phrasal verbs like run through, point out, speak up, and talk over.
Okay, listeners. Remember, our challenge today is to make your English sound more natural and fluent. We've talked about some powerful tools to help you do just that.
Exactly. So this week, we want you to try it. Start by picking just one discourse marker, maybe well or actually, and try to use it a couple of times in your conversations. For example, if someone asks you about your day, don't just say it was fine. Try, well, it was fine, actually a bit busy.
And don't forget those communication phrasal verbs. Instead of saying, "My friend told me a mistake," try, "My friend pointed out a mistake." Actively listen for these in English podcasts or shows. Then try to use them when you speak. It might feel a bit strange at first, but stick with it. Now, as you start trying these new tools, you might hit some bumps. Let's talk about common mistakes people make when trying to sound more natural and how to avoid them.
That's a really important point, Emma. One big mistake with discourse markers is overuse. People sometimes try to use too many in every sentence, and it ends up sounding unnatural. For example, well, actually, I went to the store, so, it was busy, actually.
Exactly. It becomes a distraction instead of a helper. The tip here is to start small. Just pick one or two markers like well or actually and try to use them intentionally where they genuinely fit. Don't force them. Listen to how often native speakers use them.
Another common mistake is trying to randomly swap simple verbs for phrasal verbs without understanding the precise meaning. For instance, you wouldn't say, "I want to look into my friend tomorrow," if you mean visit. Look into means to investigate.
Right. Phrasal verbs often have very specific meanings, and sometimes they don't have a direct one-word replacement. Instead of trying to guess, learn them in context. When you hear speak up or point out, pay attention to the situation it's used in. That way, you'll naturally pick up their correct usage.
And finally, a mistake many of us make is getting discouraged or giving up too quickly. Improving fluency isn't an overnight process. You won't sound perfectly natural after just 1 week.
Absolutely. Be patient with yourself. Focus on making small, consistent improvements. Maybe this week you master actually. Next week you focus on speak up. Small steps add up to big progress. Don't beat yourself up if it feels awkward at first. That's part of learning. All right, everyone. As we wrap up today's episode, let's quickly go over the 3 key takeaways for boosting your fluency.
First, remember those discourse markers like well, actually, and you know. They're your conversational glue, making your ideas flow naturally and smoothly.
Second, don't shy away from phrasal verbs related to communication, such as speak up or point out. They'll make your English sound genuinely authentic and less formal.
And third, practice self-evaluation. Be mindful of overuse, learn these tools in context, and be patient and kind to yourself as you improve. Small, consistent steps lead to big progress.
Now for your quick challenge for today. We want you to try this. In your next English conversation, or even when thinking to yourself, actively use one discourse marker, like actually, and one communication phrasal verb, such as point out.
It could be as simple as, actually, I think I'll go for coffee. Or, my teacher pointed out a new idiom today. Just try it once. That intentional practice is key.
We know you're ready for this challenge. Every small step makes a big difference, and we're incredibly confident you'll start hearing and feeling the improvement in your speaking very soon.
So, keep practicing, keep listening, and keep speaking. You're doing great work.
Thank you for joining us on the English Speaking School podcast.
We'll be back soon with more tips to help you master your English. Until then, keep up the fantastic work.
Goodbye for now.